All right, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about the Avengers wannabe Captain America Civil War? Stick around and find out. Wouldn't that be crazy if that was like the musical theme they went with for Captain America? um, Oh yeah, I'm Peter Francis. Jeez Louise. I'm tired. But I'm still Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions with my uncut review of Captain America Civil War. In the wake of the numerous Avengers conflicts that have left destruction and death in the aftermath that is completely unacknowledged. Not completely, but mostly. The governments of the world are now finally getting around to calling the Avengers to become officially sanctioned and run by the United Nations. And although Iron Man and others see the value in supervision, Captain America and those siding with him refuse to be put on the sidelines until given permission to act. The disagreement leads to a conflict that may change the Marvel Universe forever, and hopefully does. I think that'd be great. All right, so let's talk about the story, the script, and the pacing in general. This is an Avengers movie. It's not a Captain America movie. If you watched Winter Soldier and were hoping for more of that, despite everything you've seen in the trailers that indicates the contrary, you're going to be disappointed. There's a small part of me that's like, oh, I'm a little bit bummed because this was his shot for the next at least 2 more years, I suppose, of having like a really Captain America focused movie. And they used it to tell really an Avengers story, really the Avengers story that the Avengers experience that I wanted to have when I went and saw Age of Ultron last summer and was seriously disappointed and bored to death. There's lots of second-tier heroes and new ones being introduced here, though. That was disappointing. I would have preferred this story, the Civil War story, with the classic Avengers lineup. We've gotten to know characters like Thor and Hulk fairly well. Those were the 2 big ones that were certainly missing. I would have really enjoyed to have them involved in this story and see which side they would have fallen on, and just use this as an opportunity to expand on their characters and also have some of their character building from the past pay off in new ways in this setting and in this story. But I think Marvel is really more interested in launching as many character franchises as possible, as opposed to taking us deeper into the characters that they've already presented to us. Maybe there's also a money thing involved, but for whatever reason, that's just not what they made a priority for this story, which is a bit of a bummer. But I will say that for for the movie that they have, the movie that they limited themselves to, with the characters they limited themselves to, they did a pretty good job. They focused enough on the characters to get me to understand at least their motivations, even though I didn't really find myself caring and really feeling moved and empathizing with the characters a whole lot. Let's see. The tone was more serious than other Marvel movies, which I think it has the same creative team, this movie, as Winter Soldier, which also had a more serious tone than other Marvel movies, even though it still had jokes peppered throughout. But the difference is, because they give time to giving tension to the tone, then the comic relief is actually comic relief. It's relieving the tension that they've set up, as opposed to just nonstop numbing punchlines, which for me, I just don't connect with a lot with the Marvel movies that are really about just being jokey all the way through. Even the funniest of the Marvel movies, arguably the Iron Man movies, also had really heavy weight to them that alternated with those punchlines and the comic relief and stuff. So anyway, I most enjoyed in this movie the humor from Tony Stark, Ant-Man, and Spider-Man, who you've probably seen in the trailers is in this movie, because the jokes came out of who they uniquely are. The Tony Stark, the jokes all made sense out of who his character is, as this just overly arrogant guy who knows he's arrogant and is not interested in changing at all. And then Ant-Man, who just feels totally out of place among superheroes, but is still kind of having fun trying to play the part of a superhero. And then you've got Spider-Man, who is just like a kid enjoying this whole crazy situation in the way a kid would, provided he was fearless. We have to kind of, with the Marvel movies, remove a lot of kind of expectations for psychological realism. We're just going to throw this kid in there who's like in, early high school age maybe, and just like not wonder why he's not psychologically scarred from everything that he's experiencing. So even so, I that's why I like those three. The humor coming from them was true to their character, whereas the rest of the characters that were putting out punchlines, every once in a while I go, oh, that's funny, But it was like all their punchlines are the same, and they don't spring out of who they are as a character. They don't say or anything about who that character is, or support who that character is, or come as a natural outcome of who that character is. And so as a result, they're just kind of like jokes that are just there, whereas all the other jokes from the characters that I mentioned, they have more layers to them, and they have more depth to them, and they have, I think, more potential humor for me, because I can recall who they are, what I know of them, and why who they are makes this thing that they just said especially fitting or funny or surprising or whatever. There's plenty of action, and the action does feel, for me, more grounded than the usual Marvel flicks, but it still lacks some weight because power limitations are not defined, or if they've been defined in the past, there's not enough of a reminder, at least for me, of like what these characters can do, what their limits are. I felt a couple times with the Bucky, the Winter Soldier character, that I was like, oh, he just like that. How did that work? Does he have the ability to do that, to run off of a moving car and then keep running once he lands on the front of it? Did he get the super soldier serum? Maybe he did. I can't remember. Or there'd just be some action bit that I'm just like, with the building pieces, the railings and stuff that they're interacting with, I'm like, how did he know that was going to work out just perfectly so that he could, after this series of flips, do A, B, and C? There's just kind of like cool looking but very convenient action beats. And if you're not requiring things to kind of like the action to all kind of make sense in your head, then I think you'll be fine. Spider-Man at one point even makes a joke about Captain America's shield and how it just doesn't obey the laws of physics. So I mean, if you're okay with that kind of action, I think you'll still be able to totally enjoy yourself. For me, I can be okay with that kind of stuff, but if I'm having a story experience where I'm not really connected to the characters, that's where all the other little minutia that I might nitpick starts to kind of bubble to the surface. Whereas in another movie where the characters are really engaging me, I'm really feeling along with them, I can forgive or even be oblivious to some of those things that I would otherwise nitpick about. Now, without spoiling anything, I'll say that the story ends with some major issues unresolved between characters, which I think bodes well for some greater depth to the future Marvel movies, which I would love to see. I think now is a good time for them to, I think, 5 years ago was a good time, but I think now especially it's a good time, and there's good reason for them to shift the tone of the Marvel movies to bring back some of that weight and tension that we had in the early Marvel movies like Iron Man, the Iron Man trilogy in particular, that offset all the constant barrage of jokes. They seem to constantly be seeking after those jokey things that work so well in the Iron Man movies, I think, without understanding why they worked well in the Iron Man movies. Anyway, who am I to say, though? I think everybody just seems to be gobbling these up. I'm probably among the few that feels pretty lukewarm about a lot of them. But this one was more than lukewarm, I should say. I did enjoy this more than the average Marvel movie. Maybe not quite as much as Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, but I did enjoy it. Okay, let's talk about the cast a little bit and the performances here. The returning cast I'm not really going to comment on. They were all solid and still doing well what they've done already. But Paul Rudd, I do want to point out, had some great Ant-Man moments that made me wonder, maybe I underappreciated that Ant-Man movie. Maybe I should give it another try. Maybe this time around it won't feel like just another Marvel movie, which was kind of how I summed it up after watching it. This movie also made me consider giving Age of Ultron another try to see if maybe I won't be tempted to fall asleep this time, because this movie gives weight to those plot events that was sorely lacking in the Ultron movie itself. Tom Holland, I want to mention, was great as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and for the first time gives us Peter as a kid who sees and experiences the world of superheroics as a kid, again, if he was fearless. I do look forward to his movie, but he was totally unnecessary to this story. Totally unnecessary. He didn't need to be in this movie At all, at all. And I could almost say the same about Black Panther. Black Panther was just like a plot device almost, at little more than a plot device. But Spider-Man, completely unnecessary. It just felt like Marvel was just like so excited. Oh my gosh, we got the rights to Spider-Man. Put him in a movie. We can't wait to put him to, let's just get him out there. We gotta get Spider-Man. Everyone wants to see Spider-Man. And that's what we got, We got, okay, there's Spider-Man jammed and crammed right into this movie where he's not needed. In terms of the story, did I enjoy seeing him and watching him, and did I enjoy what they did with his character? Yes, absolutely, But I mean, I think if you're, and I'm not normally a story person, but I think if you're like a story person, you're probably going to see lots of problems in this movie, and maybe most obviously the complete unnecessary presence of Spider-Man in the plot. Really weird. Chadwick Boseman, if that's how you say his name, he did a fine job as Black Panther, but again, I hope we get to know his character a lot better in his solo movie. He was barely more than a plot device here. All right, briefly, the stunts and visuals. I'll just say that the stunts and visuals were solid, and they were engaging to watch. There was some more fantastic age reduction in an early scene. If you watched Ant-Man, you saw Michael Douglas's age, reduced like by 30 years or something like that in to me, a really convincing way, and normally I'm cursed with an eye that just picks out all the artifacts and crap left over from unpolished CG, and I found it very convincing in Ant-Man, and if possible even more so in this one, where there's a flashback with the Tony Stark character where they show him as a 20-year-old, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I didn't hear almost anything going on in that scene because I was just like mesmerized by this effect, trying to figure out like, wow, this really looks great. I'll say it again, they should use this technology for the Hulk. They should maybe take Mark Ruffalo halfway there with some makeup or something like that, and then just manipulate the existing image to create the Hulk so that we are not looking at a freaking cartoon, but we're looking at an actual actor, I know it would be a stretch. I know it would be a lot more involved than what they're doing, for this, but I think that's where you got to go with the Hulk next. I'm tired of looking at a cartoon Hulk. All right, moving on. I'm not really this passionate about any of this stuff, but would you really want to watch this video if I just talked like this the whole time about all of my thoughts about things? Probably not. Okay, so there was cool and creative use of each character's abilities. Lots of great superhero eye candy. Let's see here. Okay, so is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual relevance that might trigger worthwhile thought or conversation either during this movie or after watching it? I don't know, maybe. I think you kind of would have to be digging for it. I mean, I guess there's that kind of like political thing of should superheroes be under government regulation. I don't know that in and of itself is super relevant to our day-to-day lives, and nothing's immediately springing to mind since we don't have superheroes in the in the sense that we see them in comic books operating in the real world. But I guess if I were to unpack this and kind of examine it and think about it, I would say that in the real world, yes, if we better freaking have regulation. If like Dr. Manhattan shows up, if we could possibly regulate that, we got to regulate that, because no human is perfect. And we all know that might does not make right, even with our best intentions. So yes, if superheroes one day were to show up in the real world, I'd be like, we got to regulate that, because that's got to have some checks and balances there. But in fiction, I say no. Whatever you do, don't make this a trend, and I don't think they will. But I mean, don't make this a trend to have superheroes be regulated in superhero fiction. Why? Because superheroes represent the recognition we all have that our systems of justice are lacking, and that there's something broken about the world. We can try to convince ourselves that humanity is, getting better, whatever the crap that means. But while technology advances, human nature stays depressingly the same. We're just corrupt. We are broken. There are countless injustices in the world, and the superhero fantasy acknowledges that we need someone powerful, someone good, to make all these wrong things right. We cannot do it ourselves. And as believers, when we watch superheroes deliver justice in a movie or a comic book and feel ourselves say, frickin' yes, man, then that should, I think, turn our minds to a recognition that Jesus will one day, with complete fairness, he will not be the corrupt superhero. With complete fairness, he will deliver justice, and he will quarantine all evil forever. Superheroes remind us of our need and our built-in desire for a rescuer, a savior. So my vote is to keep having superhero stories with heroes unfettered by flawed human supervisors, because they have the potential to help us continually recognize our broken condition and our need for a rescuer. All right, so if I were to travel back in time and talk to myself, I'd say, Vader, don't freak out. I know time travel is not a thing that you're aware of, but it'll be fine. And just wait and rent this on Blu-ray, or maybe wait longer and just buy it used for really cheap. It's nothing you need to see right now, but it will be nice to have in your collection. It's a pretty solid movie as Marvel flicks go. It's rated PG-13 for extended sequences of violence, action, and mayhem. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. You can also support this channel by visiting spiritblade.com and seeing what we have for you there. I really didn't even want to see this movie. I wanted to stay home and work because I am so close to being done with the audio drama project that I've been working on for years, which is going to close out the Spirit Blade trilogy. That's going to be released in probably about a month or so. Will be available for you guys. So if you want to get caught up on that audio drama trilogy and support this channel at the same time, you can go to spiritblade.com for more information. And then after doing that, boom, I hope you go to christiangeekcentral.com and join us there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.